A very good morning to all of you, class 5, and welcome back to this English class. Today is Wednesday, and we will continue with the lesson we started, Rip Van Winkle. Okay, Rip Van Winkle. We will pronounce the name correctly. Our learning outcome today would be to recall the story, and we will discuss and write answers to literature and value-based questions. And at the end, we will play one language game. It is given in your textbook. So, I will tell you how to play this language game and you can do this yourself. Okay, so let us begin the story. First, let us try to recall what did we learn about the story, recap of the lesson. This story is about a character, a man called Rip Van Winkle. He lived in a small Dutch village, right? And he was quite lazy. And his wife's name was Dane. And his wife would often scold Rip Van because of his laziness, because Rip would not do anything. Although Rip was a good-natured and a kind man, but he was lazy and would not do anything. So that made his wife angry, and his wife would scold him very often. So what would he do is, Rip Van is he would just roam around, wander around the village with his pet dog, and he will tell stories. And the name of his pet dog is Wolf. Now, to escape his wife's scolding, Rip would often go to an inn. Inn is a place where people come and buy food and drink and they eat, just like a hotel or just like a modern day hotel or a restaurant. And another place where Rip liked to go was a forest. There he could escape his wife's scolding and he could be at peace. So Rip would very often visit the inn and would go to the forest to escape his wife's shouting. One day, Rip went to the forest and he thought that he will do some hunting. He thought he will do some squirrel hunting. And with him, he took his companion, his pet dog, Wolf. And there, although he could not hunt any squirrel, but he met a little bearded man. And he was calling out Rip's name. He was carrying a big drum, a barrel. So he asked for Rip's help, and Rip helped to carry that big drum. And they went, and he followed the little bearded man, and they went inside the forest. There he saw many little bearded men just like him. They were playing a game, and the name of the game is Nine Pins. And when they nine pins, it is there are nine pins which you have to hit with a ball. And when you hit with a ball, it will make a loud and a very loud booming sound. So this was the first time Rip had seen these men. And then they invited Rip to have fun with them. They shared tasty drink which was in that big drum. Now Rip was having a good time. People were drinking the tasty drink and they were playing nine pins and there was a sound of bowling, and of all these Rip was feeling very comfortable, and in the light of the moonlight he went off to sleep in the forest. Now What happens is when he woke up from his deep sleep, he realized that Wolf, his pet dog, was not around. He was quite surprised to see that because he remembered that he uh, brought Wolf with him. So the dog was nowhere to be seen. And he also saw that his clothes were torn and tattered. Tattered means, it is torn in many places. So his clothes was tattered and torn. And his gun, remember he had come to the forest to do hunting? His gun was rusted. I told you yesterday, rusted means when you keep any metal, iron, specially made of iron, if you expose it to sun or to water or to moisture for a very long time, then it gets damaged, it gets rusted. He noticed that his is gun had also rusted, and his beard had grown quite long. And he looked around if he could find the little bearded man, but he remembered that he was there with the little bearded man, but he could not find any one of them. So he was quite, surprised at what is going on around him. And he uh, realized that he could not recognize the place. It looked quite different now. Then Rib decided that it's better to go home. He knew that he will get a scolding by his wife, but then he thought it's better that I go home now. When Rip entered the village, he saw that the village was very different. There were many new buildings. And the children of the village were curious because the children, they saw a very strange looking man in the village, in the streets of the village. So for Rip, it was quite strange because the village did not look similar. There were new buildings and he could not recognize many faces. And he also did not recognize, and nobody recognized him. So he went to his house and he saw that his house was empty and silent. There was no sign of his children or his wife name. He called out his wife's name, but there was no answer. Then he looked around and he went to the inn which he used to often visit, and he asked about his friends. Then he was told that the inn owner had died 18 years ago. And he also got to know that the people around there were talking about election. He asked about his schoolmaster. Then they told him that he moved to another village. Then finally Rip asked if anybody knows Rip Van Winkle. Then a young woman with a small baby in her arms, she said that Rip was my father. He went to the forest one day for hunting and never came back. Now Rip was very amazed. He realized that this young woman was his daughter Judith. So Rip told her that he was his father. And then everybody was surprised. People were surprised to see and hear Rip's story. So they called a very old wise man in the village. And the name of the old wise man is Peter Vanderdonk. Peter Vanderdonk. So he was called and he heard to Rip's story, and he said that maybe Rip has met some ghost. So now the whole thing was settled. People realized that Rip introduced himself, that he was a Rip. He was actually a Rip Van Winkle. He told his story, and at the end, he went to live with his daughter Judith in her house. So this is the end of the story. This is a little recap of the story. Let us discuss few question answers given in your textbook. some questions. Who was Rip Van Winkle? Rip Van Winkle was a lazy man who lived in a small Dutch village. Now, all of you can answer these questions, okay? Then, why would Rip's wife scold him? Rip's wife scolded him because he was a lazy man and did not do any work. Now, children, you can frame these answers in your own sentences, okay, and rewrite. Otherwise, you can copy the same answers. Where did Rip met the little man? Rip met the little man in the hills. You can write, instead of hills, you can write forest also. Then, why did the little bearded man, what did the little bearded man share with Rip? Do you remember what did he share? What did this little bearded man share with Rip? Yes, the little bearded man shared a tasty drink with Rip. After drinking which, Rip went off to sleep for many years. Then, coming to literature comprehensions, these are some questions given in your lesson. What kind of person was Rip Van Winkle? What did he like to do? Rip was a lazy man. He liked to wander through town with his pet dog, Wolf, and tell stories to the children. Wander means to roam around. Okay? What was strange about the men whom Rip met in the hills? What was so strange about them? The men were little and bearded. Bearded means those who have hair on the facial hair. They played a noisy game of nine pins. Noisy means which makes, which involve lots of noise. That echoed throughout the mountain. Echoed, like I told you, the meaning of this word echoed is uh, when your sound repeats. Okay, when you shout and this, or when you speak, the sound repeat itself. That is echoed. Nobody recognized Rip when he reached the village. Why? Why did people did not recognize him? Nobody recognized Rip when he reached the village because he was missing for 20 years. And a lot has changed in appearance. Now, if you don't meet somebody for 20 years, I'm sure you will also have a difficulty in recognizing someone, right? How do we know that Rip was asleep for a very long time? Support your answers with detail from the story. Now, what do we learn from the story? That, when he woke up, he his clothes were tattered and torn, his gun had rusted, and his beard had grown a foot in length. So these are the changes. So these we know that beard doesn't grow overnight, and the gun does not get rusted uh, in a night. It has to be exposed to sun and moisture for a very long time. So, and his clothes were all torn. So these are the things which tells us that Rip was asleep for a long time. Okay, now there are some value-based questions. Children, these questions, I'm just giving you a guideline. I would encourage all of you to frame these answers in your own words. Why do you think no one believed in Rip Van Winkle's story? Why do you think people did not believe? I can give you some example of how to answer this question, and I would encourage all of you to frame your own answers. No one believed in Rip's story because he said that he was asleep for 20 years in the hills. They thought that he was crazy or had met some ghost. Would you believe uh, if someone tells that he or she was asleep for 20 years? No, I would not believe. So maybe that is the reason why people did not believe Rip was asleep for 20 years. It is not possible for a normal human being to remain asleep for 20 years in a forest, right? Second question, do you believe in ghosts? Why or why not? Now this is also, you can write your own answers. I will give you one example of how you can answer these questions. I do not believe in ghosts. I do not believe in ghosts because I have never seen one. But I do scared in the dark, sometimes thinking that they might be hiding under the bed, right? Something might be hiding under the bed. So this is my version of answering this question. I would encourage all of you, please frame your own answers. Okay, I'll be very happy, very delighted to read your answers. Let us play a language game. Now, this language game is given in your textbook. I will explain how to do this activity, and I would want all of you to do this activity yourself. How many words can you make from the name Rip Van Winkle? You are allowed to repeat the letters. That means Rip, R-I-P-V-A-N, Rip Van Winkle, W-I-N-K-L-E. Using all these letters, R-I-P-V-A-N, W-I-N-K-L-E, you have to make new words. Like, I can make a new word here. Uh, let us see. Let us make a new words. We will make words with the letters R, I, V, V-A-N. These are all, we have to consider them as single letter. Okay? R-I-P-V-A-N, then W-I-N-K-L-E. So with the combination of these words, I can frame van, right? Van is a word. I can frame, can you make out any other word? P-E-N. See, here there is P-E-N, pen. What else can I make? W-I-N-K, wink. Okay, so in this way, you have to frame, you have to make as many words as you can. So this would be the language game, and I would want all of you to do this yourself. Now children, I will share this PPT in the Google Classroom. Please write down the question answers in your notebooks. In the last class, I told you to write the word meanings in your textbook. So please write those word meanings also in your copy. Write down the lesson name, Rip Van Winkle, write the new words, and then you will first write these let us discuss questions, and then you will write the literature comprehension questions, and then you will write value based questions, and at the end you will do this language game. Okay, please do this in your notebooks. Thank you.